Hi, everyone. Welcome to Tru You podcast, a storytelling space for self discovery, where we use this safe, brave space to address racial trauma and healing for Black women and their own lived experiences. I'm Kelley, and this is my co host.
Hi, I'm Debbie. We're a mother daughter team having real conversations about real issues shared by and for Black women. And we have something to say.
So, we're back. So, how are you feeling, Ma?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited about this episode. I'm looking forward to hearing what our guest has to say, but also just to talk about the topic of generational hush.
Yes, I'm excited too. Nice Sunday afternoon, late afternoon.
Yeah,
But I'm happy to say we're back with another dynamic guest, and our guest
yes.
today, we're talking to Marsha. Hi, Marsha. How are you today? How are you
Hi.
feeling?
Hi, Kelly. Hi, Debbie. I'm glad to be here.
How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling well. Very happy to talk about
Good,
this.
good. Good. And so our topic today is generational hush. And I just wanted to open up with a question that I used for a icebreaker recently. And so that question was, if you could travel, would you rather go to the past to meet your ancestors or to the future and meet your descendants? And I'll start with you, Ma or Marsha, either one of you.
I think for me,
Debbie?
I'm sorry if you don't mind, I'll just go ahead first. I think I would rather go back to the past. I would love to meet my grandma. I never met my grandmother, and yet I've heard various stories about her. Was told that she died from being hit by lightning in Metropolis, and then I found out later that that wasn't true. And so I would love to be able to go back and just sit and hear her story. My grandmother was only 27 when she died, which means my mom was only 10. So she grew up without a mother, really. And I never got a chance to spend time with my grandmother. And so I would love to be able to go back and just talk to her and hear her story, find out what happened.
Nice. Marsha, would
Yes,
you
I would
rather go
also
to the past and meet your ancestors?
yes, I would rather go to the past in the sense that like Debbie, I never knew my grandparents. My paternal grandmother died when my father was 12, and my maternal grandmother was living until I was 10, but I didn't live in Ohio. I lived in New York City. So I only saw her when it was that was deceased or severely ill. hmm and I know there
Mm.
are stories, but I don't know the stories. I recently talked to a cousin of mine. He said that my grandmother was a seamstress, a tailor, and she would pedal on the streets. And that's all I know.
Mm,
That's all I know.
yeah. I think for me, I would also rather go to the past to meet my ancestors just because of the history that I don't know. So being able to be like a part of that would be just like, I think it would answer a lot of questions, and just being able to know where you came from and how your ancestors lived, what were they like, all of those things I would be interested in knowing, and just like thinking about this topic, generational hush, is kind of sensitive. Well, it's sensitive for me. It makes me think about my grandmother, who recently passed about a couple years ago, and we were very close. But she was really part of that silent generation where she didn't talk about much as far as the family history. I can remember going to a museum. It was her, my mom, and we went to this museum in San Francisco, and we were. It was part of this exhibit where there was like I think it was like some slavery. It was like Black history, and she was just sitting there like just kind of staring, but there was no emotion. If I asked her about like how it was during that time, I always got I don't remember. So I never really got a chance to know anything really about my family history because she was so shut off from it in a sense. And so that's why, I thought this was a great topic, generational hush. And I think all of us are able to like really relate to this topic. And so I'm going to pass it to my mom because she she can attest to it by us being in the same family.
Yeah,
So is there anything like you want to add as far as that generational hush, that silent generation?
absolutely. You're so right. Mom was very evasive. You ask her a question, she'd play like she didn't remember. But early on, when she was younger, she would tell me stories. And then I would ask her later in life about those same stories. And she didn't remember. And it was the same thing with my grandfather. He kept secrets as well. He was the builder generation, so they were both in that silent era where they did not share a lot. But I think it was because of it. It may have been because they were embarrassed, or maybe they didn't want anyone to know about our past. And so, the one thing I do remember is hearing that my grandfather, when my grandmother died, they had it was he had two daughters when my grandmother died. My mother was 10 and her sister was 7, and supposedly they moved up here from Metropolis after my grandmother died. And because it was told that they were going to separate the girls because they didn't think my grandfather could take care of both girls because they were so young. And he decided to bring his girls up here. And he said, I'll take care of my girls myself. And I just had images in my mind of him doing their hair, these little black girls here braiding their hair. And then I find out later that that wasn't really the truth, but it's okay. But it was a story that I grew up with, and it made my heart warm. It warmed my heart knowing that that's what my grandfather was doing. He was taking care of his two daughters, and so I still don't know the true story about what happened and how they came to come up here to Chicago. Um, so we still live in that silence, always wondering what happened. But at the same time, I didn't want to press mom, asking her a lot of questions because she would just cut me off and shut off and say, I don't remember. I'm sorry, I don't remember.
Yeah. Yeah, and just to clarify, that's Metropolis, Illinois. I know a lot of
I'm
people think
sorry.
about Metropolis and that's think of Superman, but it's Metropolis, Illinois, and and so yeah, even the mystery surrounding like my great grandmother being hit by lightning, like that's a mystery that's within our family as well. That's really like off base. Like you don't know many people who die from being hit by lightning, but nobody really knows like what happened. So, but it was just kind of like accepted, I guess, so to speak, as that being
Mhm.
the story. And so, with that being said, I know Marsha has a story to tell as well as far as her family. And so, did you want to share that right now, Marsha?
Yes, I'm happy for this opportunity to share my story. I was born in New York City, New York. My mother's family was from Youngstown, Ohio. Um, I knew my aunts. I mentioned earlier that I did not know my grandmother until much later. Found myself in the circumstance of being with my aunts and being cared for by my aunts, but I have never been able to find out where my mother was or why I was in Ohio. Myself and my sister were in Ohio. I have seen pictures of myself, maybe about two in Ohio. I asked my mother, I could never get any answers. Um, there are I believe that I was in care of others on two other circumstances. I'm not sure. I have no idea what the circumstances are. My mother never really spoke. She offered guidance in terms of me living my life, what I should do, what I should do, but it was never. It was information that was laid out. It was never an opportunity to sit eye to eye, and talk. It was just guidelines. And so I had to put together my life really in my, and I still haven't put it together. I'm still trying to figure it out in my adult life. I remember when I was younger, I had a school assignment, and that was to tell where my family was from. And I said Oklahoma. And I remember going home and telling my father I was from Oklahoma, and he said, "No, no." And he took me to the map and he showed me that my father's family was from the West Indies, and that was the first thing really that I knew about myself from my father. Um, I can talk of the values in the home was education, education, and education. There was very little else that was afforded other than being with my father's family in New York. We spent a lot of time with my father's family. I failed to say there was somebody, my father's aunt, who in some ways was a grandmother to us. We called her grandmother, but I seldom saw her. Um, and but I'd see her. Well, there would be family gatherings, but I didn't have a relationship like that with her. Um, uh, and But later on, much of what I know, I've learned through my adult life. I have spoken and asked, begged, pleaded with my aunts by my mother's side to try to know more about the family. I did find out a little information. They were from Athens, Georgia originally. Their plantation owner gave them land. Um, and Eventually, my grandmother met my grandfather, and there was a distinction somehow. Grandfather was very dark skinned man, and my grandmother was a very sand skinned lady. And apparently, there was some concerns around class differences. And my grandmother came up to Youngstown, Ohio, following my grandfather, and from there, she had 11 children. But my mother would tell us, it was pretty clear that my mother had some feelings about color and skin color, which is very um, pretty familiar. One would be know this as familiar in that particular time period. I was considered to be dark, and apparently, and my mother was dark skinned as well. My father was sand skinned, and I remember her having a conversation with me one time about if I marry someone, I need to make sure they are lighter than I am. So there were those kinds of conversations. Never. I think about something my sister told me recently, and it's true. Never knew black people. I only knew never knew African Americans coming through the American slave experience. Um, uh, Even though my mother's family was originally from the South, but apparently they were escaping that reality. Uh, my father always went behind my mother and corrected things that she would say. And he did correct that
Mm-hmm.
by letting me know that that was unacceptable. He did say that, and that I was perfectly the way I was good, perfectly okay the way I was in terms of my color. And so that's something. So those are some of the things that I experienced. So there was a lot of conversation about education. That was the whole spiel in my household, but not much in terms of what experiences the family had and how they
Yeah.
weathered them.
No, like you like actually went right into like my second topic, which was like how have you been affected by like this generational hush or this generational silence? And I know like for me, how I've been affected, it's painful at times because I can remember like being in a class just like yourself where we had to do like a patch, it was called patchwork, a patchwork quilt of our generations, and I had a hard time. I could not figure out like how am I going to do this assignment because I don't know, so I did the DNA thing where you try to find out where your family has come from and try to use that. I don't know how accurate that is, but I mean it's DNA is science, so I go with that and saying like, okay, well my family's from here based on this DNA, and then just trying to kind of fill in where where the rest kind of works in. So like um I'm affected in ways where I feel kind of like things have been stolen from me in a way, like as far as when you're in these classes and you're with maybe the white students, they know exactly where they came from. They can tell you generation upon generation what country they came from, and it's just kind of it's hurtful that I when you don't know and you want to know. Um, and there's ways of doing it, but you really have to do a lot of digging. And if people aren't talking, um, that's another factor. And so, I'll let you talk about how has it affected you.
It's affected me as well in a negative manner. I went through some of the same things, trying to figure out um, my family tree,
Yeah.
trying to fill in the boxes of our family tree, and speaking with mom and trying to find out from granddad, and then finding out from my father's side of the family was a little, you know, actually I didn't know a lot about my father's side of the family, so I was unable to fill in my father's side. So I had my mother's side of the family only to a certain part, and my father, he was not in the house, so it only went so far. And so again, it's like part of me has been stolen as well. I don't know enough about my father to be able to fill in even my grandmother's name. I know his name, um, on my father's side, but at least on my mother's side, I have names, and we did do the DNA testing where I think I got as far as New York, and I didn't know we had family in New York. And so when you reach out to other family members to see, okay, what did you find out in this area? It's almost as if, well, I'll have to get back to you on that. They don't want to share it with you. It's as if it's there. I did all the work, so I'm going to keep this to myself. They don't want to share it with the rest of us. And so I agree, Kelly. It is as if part of us has been stolen away from us, as if part of us is missing. And that's the sad part for me. It's a huge frustration, because even though mom probably wanted to share more, it was almost as if she was being silenced as well. And I think that's another reason why we didn't find out, is because she was told, you can't tell this. You can only share so much. And so it's generational. They keep the secrets. They don't want it to get out what happened. And so that's the same thing on my father's side of the family. I don't know that side. And so it's as if your life is good. Don't worry about what happened in the past. Just keep moving forward and make new memories. And that's sad for me because I would love to know more about who am I? Why do I look like this? Why is my brother, why does he look the way he does? I we don't We don't favor at all, but I look like mom. And so again, it's very frustrating. It really is. And I guess I've gotten to a point now that I'm so comfortable with knowing my grandchildren, even though I didn't have a grandma, I became the ultimate grandmother because I didn't have a grandmother. And so that's what has made me who I am. I take everybody's child and they become my grandchildren. And I just love them and spend time with them as much as I can. And I do that for that reason because I didn't know my grandmother. So I want to make sure they know who I am. And I wanted to make sure that they knew my mother, their grandmother or their great grandmother. And so that's the frustration. And that's a result of my frustration.
Yeah. Marsha, did you have anything to add as far as maybe the frustrations of not knowing your family history, or maybe like just how you've been affected by the hush or the silence?
Um, yes, for me, it's been a very lonely life because um, I just didn't have the same experiences as many of my peers. That is the experience of knowing about my family, very much like Debbie says, knowing the family, knowing I know pieces of stories, but there's an emptiness because you can't. Because I couldn't construct um, my life. I couldn't construct any of it. I did, however, set my son on task, and my cousins also have the same struggle on my father's side, and we all began to put together um, our pictures and share those pictures. And my son went on to, and he's on ancestry.com, and the other one, I forget which one, the other one. I do know a little bit more about myself, but it doesn't, it's information in my head, but it doesn't address the wealth of experiences you have coming up where you have people who comfort you, or you have people that are you're connected to, or you know that they are your um, that they would stand for you. I mean, it's not that I don't feel that my mother or father would stand for me, and it's not in the absolute sense, but I just don't have those experiences of knowing people, trusting people. um, other I just don't have those experiences. Those experiences are coming to me in my adult life because I've pursued them. Um, what I
Yeah.
know about my family is that my grandmother, first of all, I've seen pictures through my cousins um, that they acquired when their parents died. I did find out that my paternal great grandmother is white. I did find out that my grandmother is biracial. And so I did find those kinds of things. I do know there was a rift in the family. I don't know what the rift is about, but there was profound separation between my father and his family. He ended up going into foster care. Um, so there are two wings of the family. I came up in the projects in New York City, and then my family had, my father's brother had a business, and my aunt, they had their businesses, and they lived a fairly middle class life. Certainly, we had middle class values in my home. I know that, but um, so that I do know. But my sister said something to me the other day, and it just brought home for me something. She says, I never knew any black people. I just never knew any black people, and it just drove home the same thing that I felt. I never knew black people. I was among white people in school all the way through, but we never could go to their homes. We never could know their families. My mother did not allow us to be in the care of other people. So I only knew my immediate family. Um, and so it has impacted my life through loneliness and trying to put together and answer questions that many people have been fortunate to, not everybody, but many have been fortunate to live in their life. I have not. And I've worked very hard to make sure my adult children know something about me, um, and to um, experience the love and the connectedness in a way that I didn't experience. I knew my mother cognitively. I didn't feel her love. I knew my father, but
Mm,
I know he loved me. I knew he loved me. So that's how it impacted me.
yeah. Wow. Thanks, Marsha. Like you keep going like right into my next topic. Like
I'm
when I
sorry.
think about no, no, no. It's just
Mhm,
like a perfect like segue.
mhm.
So, like when you think about this generational hush, I know for me, like I think a lot of the characteristics my grandmother has, I like kind of took on. Like I'm very introverted, so being part of this podcast is like very like outside the box for me, and being able to share my story because I don't do it, you know, and even when things happen within my family, like I tell my kids, don't you tell nobody what, you know, don't tell nobody our business, you know, because this is our business and this is our family stuff. But I think for me, just I think this is an opportunity to change this generational hush and show a different way of passing down history. And so I have two boys, and they're young adults. Well, one's a teenager and one's a young adult. And I find that this is like my opportunity to kind of share things about the history that I do know. So I know my grandmother, so I share things with and they know her too. You know, she just passed maybe a couple years ago, but I did read like it takes maybe 3 to 4 generations before you forget a person. And so I'm like, oh, that's alarming, you know. So I want to make sure like my kids don't forget their great grandmother. And so she did just have like her birthday's in September, and I wanted to make sure like that we celebrate her. And I asked them like, what do you remember about grandma, but about grandma? And they remembered some things, and that felt good. But I want to make sure that they don't forget as they get older. And so I want to make that part of our family and make sure that they know their history as much as I know the history. And being able to break these generational this generation of silence, and being able to pass down things to them that are different, but also like what are some things we don't want to pass down, you know, to the next generation. Like how do we stop certain things that are traumatizing for, you know, Black people, and cause this racial trauma. And so Ma, like did you want to share like what opportunities did you feel? Because I, you know, with us, we're very close. So I'll let you
Yeah.
share on that.
Yeah, we're very close. Kelly and I are. I mean, if we go a day without talking, it's unusual. But we do. I felt as though it was important for us to start making new memories. And one thing we did start doing prior to Mom's passing is every year we would take a trip and we would try to hear things from Mom. What are some of those things that we can pass down to our families? But I think the one thing that really um, was touching for me was our last time together, all of us, and it was all of us at Christmas time. And Mom used to always wear a Christmas sweater, and we all decided, everybody in the family that came for Christmas, we all wore a Christmas sweater. And so that was a
And
new memory.
not just a Christmas sweater, a ugly Christmas sweater.
Ugly Christmas sweater.
A
We
ugly
all wore an
Christmas sweater.
ugly
Yeah.
Christmas sweater. This was Mom's last Christmas with us. And she, every Christmas, she was the only one that would wear a Christmas sweater. And she would wear a different one every Christmas. And so we decided that Christmas we were going to all wear an ugly Christmas sweater. So that was a new memory that we shared together. Another memory that we started sharing together was getting together at Thanksgiving. We would always get together at Thanksgiving, but we always ended up doing all of the cooking. And so we decided to go away for Thanksgiving. And so that was another new memory, going up to Lake Geneva and spending a couple of nights and having cooking our Thanksgiving meal there, but at the same time making new memories, and something that the grandchildren will remember. Um, and so it's important. It's very important that my two daughters and my five grandchildren remember mom, because she loved them dearly. But I also want them to remember, have their own memories of her individually, because they all spent time with her. And so I'm grateful when I hear that Kelley asked the boys what they remembered about grandma. I'm a little sad that the younger grandchildren, Autumn will remember, who is 8 years old, but Alana and Aiden probably will not remember a lot about her, but they'll remember pictures. They'll see pictures of her, and just being able to share as much as I can of our time together. Maybe we start where we are, sharing history and memories, starting where we are. And I just pray that my prayer is that I'm there to see my great grandchildren like she was able to see her great grandchildren. And so those are the new memories that I would like to make with our family. Kelley and Kim is my other daughter. We talk all the time. I share as much as I can. I tell them everything I know.
So, Marsha, did you have anything to add as far as
Well,
things you
yes.
might want to change or not want to pass down to the next generation?
Certainly, a silence would be one of them. And responding to questions, although my children haven't gotten, they're busy with their lives. But I know in a couple of years they'll be back to ask questions and so on. I should say that I'm the grandparent of, Carl and I are the grandparents of 11, and I make it my business to go around and visit each one of them, spend time with all of my grandchildren, those that all of my grandchildren. Um, they know me as grandma, but they know me by separate names. Some call me grandma, some call me Mima, some call me abuela. Um, but they all know that I'm grandma. I love them to pieces. I let them know that I love them. I am honest with them. In working with my adult children, I have tasked my oldest son to find out more about the family, and he has duly and diligently done a lot to find out, as I mentioned earlier, about our family, who they are, to be connected to other family members, my cousins, who he got them to share pictures and to tell their stories. And he has put together all the family pictures that he has on my father's side of the family. Um, my mother's side of the family, it's not quite easy because my oldest cousin had a fire in his house, and so the memories went. But getting him to talk is what I try to do. Um, so I've
Yeah.
tasked my children to know um, our story, and the other thing is that I recognize in myself the need to love my grandchildren and that they know me. Based on the age level, I try to be open with who I am, what my life has been, and just spending time with them. Spending time and loving them
Yeah, I
is.
agree. I agree, Marsha. Wow. That's awesome. I think we're kind of all on the same level when it comes to what we want for the next generation, when it comes to our families. So I mean, as we move towards the close of the podcast, I do think it's important, and that's the reason for this podcast, to acknowledge the racial trauma that we endure as Black people, but also knowing that as we acknowledge it, we can get to a place of healing. And so, the
Mhm.
question that I want to ask both of you, but you, Marsha, at first, like because you kind of wear two hats, so I'm going to ask you the question twice. So, for you personally, what do you think you need for racial healing, and then on the back end of that, because you are a social worker, so for as a clinical person, what would you suggest that can be done differently for racial healing in our community?
Um, for racial healing in our community and with our people, um, to validate their experiences, to care, to genuinely care, and not just that I feel I'm caring, but that they experience caring through me. So, of course, I'm in the field of education. So, for example, um, caring would be, um, and I suppose I'll move a little quicker into the social work because I spent time, 20 something years as a school social worker, helping young people to know that when they encounter struggles academically, that it's a matter of advocating for yourself, getting the help you need, and teaching them to learn teaching them to speak for themselves, teaching them to be okay with asking for help, helping them to know what the role of the teacher is, and that is to be available to help them, to go for help, but then being available to fill in the gaps that they don't have educationally, rather than downplay themselves or say that they can't get it, or to feel that they somebody that there's going to be a consequence if they don't do something, or and I did that with my children as well, helping them to understand that all problems are solvable. All problems are solvable. It may not be the way we want, but they are solvable, and we can disaggregate them to be able to find a solution, um, or find a new road to success. Um, and So primarily, I guess they kind of go in the same category. Mostly with the young people, and when I work with adults as well, is to know for them to feel worthy, to acknowledge their concerns, and no concern is too big or too small. It just is, and it needs to be satisfied. Um, and just helping people to understand profoundly that they are worthy, and that there's a system set up that's not designed to for them to be successful, to feel worthy, to be entitled to what they're entitled and to and work for, without being pejorative. And I just um, just loving people so that they know that they're human and lovable and capable, and that they have obligation to other people in the arena, in the social arena, in the
Yeah.
living arena, that they have obligation to their family, to their neighbors, to their classmates, um, and also not to accept, especially with students, not to accept um, other people of other races or teachers' assessment of them. Um, that assessment may need to be evaluated, and may need to be teaching them the skills that they need, rather than make a cast an aspersion on whether or not they can be successful or not.
I
I
love
don't
that,
know that I.
Marsha. So, uh, so did you get so like as far as yourself, what do you feel like you need for like racial healing? Is it the same thing as what you would give to someone else as what you need as well? And so like you feel like I don't want to speak for you, but is that what would that run into the same category like of what you would need, or would it be something
Well,
different?
well, yeah. As I'm still feeling like I'm on my way somewhere. I have a contribution to make. and just learning how to articulate what I need is is what I have learned. My experience of sitting in Catholic schools, predominantly white environments with white teachers, taught me that there was a silence that gave me the idea that I could not do, that I could not be successful, that I could not perform better than what I performed. I performed based on that slinking back, sitting in the back seat. Don't bother me. You don't ask me any questions. I won't ask you any questions. I won't ask you any questions. So don't ask me any questions, kind of thing, all the way through school until I got to Atlanta University School of Social Work and, well, Atlanta University School of Sociology and then School of Social Work, where I got the MA and the MSW, where I had people who told me what I was capable of and then led me to the tools that I needed to be able to be successful. Um, that I built my confidence, began to build my confidence. And in building my confidence, um, I began to recognize what students need. And so I'm not looking for other people um, in terms of racial healing. I feel very positive as an African American person. Um, and I feel that my relationship, and I don't know if if I understood the question. I'm going to try to make sure I did. Am I going in the right direction, Kelley?
Hmm.
Um, to
Yeah, I mean,
inter,
just in terms of when it comes to like what we're talking about, generational trauma, this generational hush. And I think you have hit on it. Like, you need to
Yeah,
people in your corner to show that, like,
absolutely.
you're worthy, and to uplift, and I feel the same way. Like, did you want to chime in
Yeah,
on
yeah. I think I'm the same way. Yeah. If I think even though I have had trauma in my life, I truly believe that it's who we surround ourselves with. My mom was a huge encourager. She encouraged me to, regardless to what I was going through, keep going, don't stop, you can do it. And I think with mom, her encouragement helped me work through some of the trauma that I had been through, even though she was the one who helped me push through, but at the same time, she was the same one that kind of kept things to herself. But when it came to a time when I needed encouragement, or when I needed to be told you can do it or you're worthy, she was there for me. And also my aunt, just various members of my family. So I pray that that's what has helped others as well, that they have someone to encourage them, because that's all some of us really need, is some encouragement, someone to listen to us, someone to care, truly listen, and not try to tell us what we should be doing, but walking with us in what we're going through. You don't need someone to solve a problem for you. I didn't need anyone to solve it. I needed someone to listen, and that's all you need sometimes, is someone to
Mhm,
walk with you
mhm,
through
mhm,
the dark times. And I think that's why um, my life has been full. It has been quite full because of the people in my family who I've surrounded myself with, and friends, my church family. And so it really helps if you have someone in those dark times that can listen to you. And so that's where I am. And
mhm,
I truly believe that the trauma that a lot of us face, or that I've faced,
mhm,
is 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 something that has been not dissolved, but helped. I was helped through it because of my family and because of the encouragement I felt from my family. So
Thank you. I love that. I think on that note, like, we can I want to thank Marsha for joining us on our second episode of True You. We've definitely done some storytelling and revealing our true selves. And I thank you, Marsha, for joining us. Um,
mhm.
Thank you,
Anytime.
Ma, for being a fantastic co-host, and and I want and as we move into our next episode, please join us again as we talk again about real issues and real conversations amongst Black women. And I think when we get to this place where we can freely be ourselves, there's healing in that. And so, with that said, goodbye, everyone. Till next time.
Okay. Thank you,
Until next
Kelley.
time.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you.
Tru You is brought to you by Radiant Vessels and sponsored by Proviso Partners for Health and Women Leaders in Philanthropy. Funds for Tru You, a storytelling space for self-discovery, were received from Women Leaders in Philanthropy, which is a giving group of the Oak Park River Forest Community Foundation.